Yep, we're good. We are live. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Who's that guy over there next to you?
I'm glad we knew we were going live. I wasn't like that lady who ended up on Zoom in the bathroom. And then, okay. So we're here. Hi.
Like the deer in headlights type thing, right? Hey, everybody. Craig with High Speed Daddy. George with High Speed Daddy. What's going on? George is joining us today. As everyone knows me, right? I'm Craig. I am co-owner of High Speed Daddy with this guy who pops in every now and then, George, the Lighthouse Bryant. He can get into the Lighthouse thing in a little bit there. But basically,
I forgot I had that up.
People are like, who's the Lighthouse? What's that?
That's from the last marketing call I was on StreamYard. It saved my settings, man.
Oh, dude. And I love that you're wearing a Bub shirt today. And we're going to kind of reference that as well. We're going to tie that in for TJ and Sean. But anyway, we're talking about the benefits of coffee and how that just saves our lives as dads.
I'm going to send TJ today. A picture of it too.
Yes, definitely. So, you know what, we're going to go into the good things about coffee and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't know that George actually used to own a coffee company back in the day. And he's kind of a brewing coffee master, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, we're live on Culture City website. Hello, our friends over at Culture City. How's everyone doing? We're obviously live on High Speed Daddy. We're live on the High Speed Daddy Facebook, Provide, Protect, Connect men's group. We're live there. So we're blasted all over the place right now. So everyone, please feel free to leave comments, say hello, tell us where you are and where you're from.
And I want to know what your biggest coffee question is or your biggest coffee vice. Like, I want to know the truth. But I learned, like, listen, I'm not the world's most interesting man. I'm like the world's most obsessed man for a short length of time before I move on again. So yeah, I've owned a lot of companies and coffee was one of those. And I thought wine was difficult until I learned coffee, and coffee is probably 10 times more difficult than wine. Like, it's absolutely mind blowing to me what's there. And so I did learn a lot, but I also learned how not to spend $3,000 a year at Starbucks and replicate the same process for like $52 at home. So,
well, let's go into that on tell me, because I know for a fact that you have little qualms about Starbucks coffee, and we're not yelling at you because you drink, Starbucks coffee and stuff like that. Because hey, there is a version of convenience that's built into it, and people that built in and just stop there on the way, stop at Dunkin' Donuts, whatever it may be. Me personally, I love giving my business when I don't do my own coffee to the local breweries, right? Or the local brew shops and things along those lines. Mostly because I like supporting local. But there is a version of, getting used to single origin coffee. It tastes different. And I didn't realize that when I started going to these local shops, and I was like, is your coffee bad? Or is my taste buds, like, I've been drinking coffee since I was like 11, which is why I'm only 5'9". That's it. But good.
That's why I'm 5'7". I didn't start drinking until I was 16, but I drank like 6 pots a day in Afghanistan, and I feel like it just moved me down. Like, I went from like 5'9.5" to 5'7" in the span of like 7 months. That's what it is.
Yeah, quick sidetrack. When you were going through, your boot camp, were you guys allowed, to drink the coffee out of the MREs?
No.
Now, we weren't as well until we got to like final FTX, right? Field training exercise and stuff like that.
We were allowed to start having it after they consider us after rifle range, basically which is like week 9 of 13 for us. Basically, they're like, oh, they're not going to kill us, and they kind of know what they're doing now. Yeah. So we've made it through phase 2. So phase 3 starts at week 10. And then that's where they were kind of like, yeah, you can have it. But we weren't also allowed to use the heaters. So they take those away from Marines because we make bombs out of them. And so they say no to everybody. Yeah. And so then we would just eat the coffee, right? Like, that's okay. That was the game.
There you go. So I'm getting into that now. So there used to be something called the Ranger dip, right? Which was, for the Army side of things, you take the MRE toilet paper, you'd put the coffee grinds in there, wrap the toilet paper, and then throw the dip in, and you would leach that in just like you have regular nicotine dip, which you obviously weren't allowed in basic training and whatnot. So we did that stuff so it would slow leak in. And we did that like during all night training exercises and stuff. Touché. And I haven't thought about this in 8 years, but this just brought that back up. Right?
So, I've never dipped. And see, Marines aren't that smart. We just took the Tabasco and poured it in our eyes. And we would do it to each other, right? And
of course.
Yeah, but we used it in Afghanistan a couple years later. It works like dreams. Like if you ever can't wake up or you can't stay awake.
Yeah, hot sauce in the eye will do that.
I promise you, hot sauce in the eye will put you on another level of life, new level of existence there. So yeah, I think Craig, to transition into this with coffee, you know, it's not like, here's the thing. I love Starbucks. I love the convenience of it. I love what they offer. I still get things there. And sometimes I get coffee there, but I do it because I understand what's happening. And so like the one big point that I always make, and I learned this, and some of you know this if you're familiar with me, and some Craig knows this, but you know, when you're in the military, we're pretty high strung. We live in fight or flight, right? So our adrenals get like shot. And I was on active duty for 12 years, working out 3 times a day, drinking 2 pots of coffee a day. And then I got out of the military and my life slowed down and I like crashed. I had adrenal fatigue. Like I was done. Like I couldn't work out for like 9 months. Like I was shot. Right. And I was like, oh, I have to give up coffee. I have to give up coffee. I have to give up coffee. And they make you. And when I gave up coffee, I had to give it up for 9 months. I couldn't do decaf. I couldn't do anything. And so when I came back into coffee, I started to notice, I was like, wow, I had a cup of coffee and I would start like sweating and I would smell funny and I would be like jittery. And everyone's like, oh yeah, it's the caffeine. It's the caffeine. Right. And right around this time is also when I started getting knowledgeable about coffee. And then I would also drink a lot of tea, like green tea, black tea that's loaded with caffeine, but I would never get sweaty, never get jittery, and I would never smell. And so I started doing research and looking in, and a couple of my friends own coffee shops. Well, it turns out caffeine doesn't cause an actual reaction in your body. I don't know if you want me to tell you what causes it, but I'm going to anyways.
We're doing it. Yeah. People need to know. We keep it real here.
Yeah. That reaction that you get is mold. And so that's mold poisoning. And so it happens in low levels a lot with coffee, but if you go isolate caffeine, the same caffeine that's in coffee, and just take it straight or drink it, even 3 to 4 times the dose, at most you're going to get jittery because your adrenaline and blood is pumping so fast, but you won't get the sweats, you won't get the smells, you won't get the fog, you won't get any of it. And so the reason is, and this is the reason that I knock on like Starbucks and, you know, Dunkin' Donuts, and by the way, they both source their coffee from the same place, just so you guys know, is because you can't at that scale provide as quality of coffee as needed, right? So one really easy way to understand is that coffee, when it's in its green form, right? So they pick it off a tree, it comes in a cherry, they take the cherry out and it's like this little green bean. And then that green bean can basically last for like 3 to 4 years without having anything to be do with it. They either sun dry it or they air dry it, right? The process of coffee doesn't start until it's roasted. And the moment it's roasted, how coffee is made is it's roasted at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, which creates a chemical reaction in the bean that releases nitric oxide. And one of 21 chemical reactions takes place every time you brew. 84 chemical reactions take place every time you brew a cup of coffee. And so when you roast it, it activates that nitric oxide, which is what gives coffee life. It's what gives it flavor, and it extracts the stuff. The thing is that once you roast it, you have between 21 and 30 days before it's gone. And so when it's roasted, they call it off-gassing, right? So if you ever brew a fresh cup of coffee at home, or you go to a local coffee shop like the one we go to when you're at your house and you watch them do a pour over, you'll notice that the coffee always bubbles, right? That bubbling is the nitric oxide relaxing with the hot water, which is off-gassing. That also keeps the coffee fresh. The moment it is done off-gassing, which is about 21 to 25 days, it basically becomes stale and a breeding ground for mold. And so at that point, it's basically just collecting mold spores and things like that, and toxins and things that aren't good for you because you've lost the freshness of the coffee. It's like food spoils. Coffee spoils too. And so what'll happen is you go to a local coffee shop and you love it, right? Because you'll see it. They have beans right there. Their bags will say roasted 3 days ago. They pour the beans in, grind them fresh, make you a cup of coffee, right? But then you go to the grocery store and you see Starbucks bags and Dunkin' Donuts bags sitting on the shelf with a 6-month expiration date of roasted coffee, right? Or my favorite one is those bulk bins. Like, that's like the cesspool of like, I don't even want to touch them, right? It's like basically poop coffee. Not Cope Luwak, which is the most expensive coffee in the world, but it tastes good. I've tried it. And so it's important to remember. And so when you think about things like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, coffee is graded both on a number scale and a letter scale, A and then through 100, right? And so basically the scales are determined by how many imperfections are in the coffee, right? And so of course the higher ones are really, really more expensive, single origin and things like that. Most of those big companies, because of volume, have to buy C and D type coffee, right? And so what that means is that it's not filtered. So there's bugs in it. There's broken beans in it. There's other things in it because they're not filtered out. So this is why Starbucks coffee always tastes burnt, because they have to over roast all of it to get it to the same flavor profile to get rid of all of those imperfections. And so it's just really important to know and remember, because I've seen people, Craig, back when I used to be a health blogger for a different lifetime, I'd see people struggling with autoimmune conditions or health issues over and over, and they're doing everything, and they couldn't get better. And then they remove crappy coffee, and all of a sudden they're better, right? Because they were having negative reactions to what was in it. And so it's just important to remember. And then the one caveat to that too is that if you're ever brewing coffee at home, don't ever buy it ground, ever. Buy whole bean and buy a burr grinder. Once you grind coffee, you have less than 30 to 60 seconds for it to be brewed, for it to actually make a cup of coffee. And so what happens is if you buy pre-ground stuff or you buy coffee that's out that date, you think you're getting coffee, but you're just getting coffee water because it can't react to create the coffee. So when you brew coffee, and this is my last rant, and I know way too much about coffee. When you brew coffee, the reason when they teach you how to brew at home and things like that, they always say the water has to be between 195 and 205 degrees. Over 205, you're going to burn the coffee, but under 195, and the water's not hot enough to create the chemical reaction to actually brew the cup of coffee. And in that is where you get a lot of the benefits. And so you kind of got to stay in that sweet spot with a fresh grind and things like that. And so I use Starbucks as my emergency, right? And if I do anything, I get an Americano because they pull the espresso right then. And I know it's ground. I have no idea when it's roasted, but it's, 2 shots with this much water. So I kind of.
So that's why you order the Americano. Okay.
That's why
I thought I was like, oh, he just likes it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Americano. I just want a regular cup or espresso, right? I spent a lot of years traveling back and forth to Mexico in a previous job and stuff. And it was just like espresso, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, why does George always get the Americano? Boom. Now I know.
And so like for me, like I still like to this day, I'm as healthy as an ox, the healthiest I've ever been. I drink coffee 2 times a day from my local place, right? I can go to Starbucks right now, have a coffee, and within a half an hour, I will have sweat in my armpits. I will have body odor, and I will be jittery and like amped up just from that 1 cup of coffee. And so for me, what I've learned, if I do grab Starbucks, and I do like the taste of it sometimes, I add the water because it dilutes it down so much. So I get 20 ounces and there's really only 4 ounces of espresso. And so the rest of the water helps dilute it. So I don't have as much, but if I go get a black coffee from them or just straight espresso, nope. It's like I worked out for 7 hours and my wife's like, get away from me. Like just go. Right. So and that's just the reaction to the toxins.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you guys that have been wondering, like, it's a kind of part of that being self-aware, right? Recognizing, hey, trying to put, 1 and 2 together and realize what's going on here with sometimes when you have reactions to coffee or, something going on, you can maybe trace it back to that for people that aren't aware of it right now. But going back to, there are benefits to having coffee through this. And we were talking about adrenal fatigue and always being fight or flight and stuff along those lines. You get that same thing, not just through the military, but through being new parents, right? You're constant, like baby's crying. You're not used to the crying noise. You're getting woken up in the middle of the night. You're on, the less sleep. There is a lot of, crossing over for me, recognize like, like me personally, like waking up to that stuff and going right into like fight mode because I was like, okay, I'm ready, because that's how we were trained and what we were trained to do. And you're like, no, relax. But that still means that your adrenals are getting taxed and things along those lines. So there is benefits to coffee and some caffeine that comes through there, especially, let's just say an exercise, right? Yep. For the people that have gotten, like, I've tore my gut apart with pre-workouts in the past, like to the point where I had to go off supplements for like months, just because pre-workouts just really just killed me. Yeah, there's nothing the matter with taking a banana and a shot of coffee or something along those, a little bit of coffee right before you go exercise to help out with that little caffeine push there. I do the banana with it so that the acids in the coffee don't kill you and things like that. But that then goes into, hey, there's ways to brew coffee where the acids aren't as bad, such as cold brew, right?
Oh my God.
Am I kind of getting my stuff correct here?
But I have to laugh because Joseph is on and he's like, what are the real health benefits of Rip It? And I just had a flashback to Lash Kagar in Afghanistan, Joseph. And bro, thank you for the memory. Yeah. They're really
George. Do you know Joseph? I think we've talked about him before. Joseph, like our
he was on a call with us. Yeah.
There you go. So
I do. There is a benefit, just to go down this rabbit hole. The benefit of Rip Its, it's the fastest way to get a kidney stone. So if you've ever wanted to experience one, just drink Rip Its and you'll know, because I swear half of my Marines were passing kidney stones like once every 2 to 3 months. And so, but you're totally on point, Craig. And I think one of the rules that I have, because I have an addictive personality. Okay, cat's out of the bag, like you didn't know, right? So when I go all in, I go hard in the paint, right? Like there's no wiggle room or gray area. It's like, where I am. And I love the taste of coffee. I've never really experienced like a big benefit or an upper. And I think because you and I both know, like, our capacity is very, very high. Like we naturally stimulate ourselves with, triggers, because that's kind of been trained into us, and you can train that capacity. And so coffee, like, I can be exhausted and drink a cup of coffee and I'll just still be exhausted, except I'm a little bit happier because it tastes good. And so one of the things that I like to do, and this is just so I make sure that I'm not getting dependent on it, I go 2-to-1 water coffee. So if I want a coffee in the morning, like a 20-ounce Americano, I'll have 40 ounces of water first, and then I'll have my cup of coffee. And then after that coffee, if I want a second cup, it's another 40 ounces of water, and then I can have it. And so I like to do that even when I'm using it on my pre-workout too, because a lot of times people mistake like fatigue and needing energy, especially pre-workout when you're up there in the morning, right? And you're using those things. A lot of the times it's dehydration. And if you go dehydrated with an exorbitant amount of caffeine and then go to a workout, that's a recipe for disaster. And you won't feel it right away. It's like one of those slow drip, like Chinese water torture things that's going to get you from the inside out, right? And so I like to just kind of benefit that. And the one clean thing here, we talk about this, Craig, in our blog post, the 5 coffee benefits for busy parents, is cold brew. Now, the difference between cold brew and hot coffee is brewed, if it's espresso, in 31 to 34 seconds, depending on the espresso machine. If it's, drip pour over or a machine, it's somewhere between 30 seconds and at max 6 minutes, right? So it's a very hot water, very chemical reacted, over extraction, get it all out, right? When you use cold brew, you use room temperature or cold water, either in the refrigerator on the counter, and it takes anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. And so people that struggle with like acid reflux, stomach issues, GERD, any autoimmune conditions, or even their stomach is ever hurt from drinking too much coffee, normally that's from acidity. And so when you use cold brew, you basically eliminate almost all of the acid that is in coffee because of the slow extraction process and being very meticulous. And so what I do, or what we've recommended when I used to teach this stuff, is people like, oh, I wish I could have hot coffee. It upsets my stomach, blah, blah. I'm like, brew a massive batch of cold brew. And in the morning when you want it hot, warm it up in the coffee maker or on the stove. Make your iced coffees with it, make your smoothies with it, and have it. You get the caffeine, you get the benefits that you get from coffee, like healthy hearts, like the antioxidants, your brain function, all of that. You eliminate all of the acidity, and then you kind of work it in however you need to. So that's what it is.
Yeah. Let's see. Just ask another question here. When doing a 24-hour duty, what's the out this way to stay awake the whole time? Get plenty of sleep the night before.
And you know what, Joseph, I learned this near the end, and I got in trouble a lot, even when I was a staff NCO in a Gunny Select. So I had to stand a lot of duty on my way out. But I was into intermittent fasting at that point because I was super, super healthy, like paleo, CrossFit, and everything. And I struggled with duty forever. I was the dude who was like, I'm not doing my rounds. I'm sleeping for 2 more hours, right? Like nobody's here. But then I started intermittent fasting. And so I would basically eat the day before, sleep really good, work out, drink my water. And then the day of duty, I would basically just start water fasting, and I would just use intermittent fasting, and then I would use movement. And so like on our rounds, like, Joseph, we'd have to go do rounds. I would intentionally do more rounds just to be moving and walking, which you'll never get in trouble for being on duty. And so I would just use intermittent fasting with water and making the rounds. And then if anything, natural stimulants are burpees, of course, right? Movement, squats, breath work is a massive one, right? You start falling asleep doing like Wim Hof breathing or intense, like deep circular or hyperventilating breathing will wake you up, brings oxygen to your brain and gets rid of that fog. So that's how I do it.
Cold water face splashes, ice baths just for your face. I mean, you're not going to obviously go sit in an ice bath or take a cold shower at that point, but still just splashing the cold water, keeping the cold water and stuff like that. So we're not going to like default and say like, oh yeah, you got to drink like 3 cups of coffee during that time, right?
Most of the time it'll fatigue you more.
Like, there you go, because of the crash.
Yeah, because the thing that you have to remember is that like it's an upper, it's a stimulant, right? And so it doesn't last forever, and you have to kind of weigh the benefits, right? Because if your baseline, let's say, is a 3 before a cup of coffee, and you have a cup of coffee to bring you to a 6, well, when you're done, you go down to 2. And then you have another cup of coffee, you go up to 5, and then you go down to 1. And it stops being as effective because you build up a tolerance and the half-life to it. And so you got to kind of weigh that benefit. And so I normally don't. Like, if I'm trying to stay up for extended periods of time, I will not have coffee at all. And then if I have it the next day, I'll have decaf just because I want the flavor. But I want my body to naturally start reproducing dopamine and serotonin and all the things that it has to do. And anything that we add, especially during those times, inhibits our body's natural ability to start recovering and processing itself. And so, like, you know, if you can't sleep for a couple of days and you get used to, you know, taking like melatonin, or no, melatonin is not too bad, but any of like the other stuff, like the sleep pills, and then you're like, okay, it was temporary, but you go to sleep on day 4, your body is not going to naturally produce the same hormones, the same chemicals, your circadian rhythms off. And so then you have to kind of deal with that fallout and crash, and caffeine is no different. So that's how I feel.
And depending on how sensitive you are to caffeine, stuff like that, I mean,
totally.
Don't be drinking the caffeine. You know, I don't take anything usually after about 2 o'clock, because every now and then I do get sensitive, and it depends on the coffee too, right?
Yeah.
You know, depending stuff like that. So, you know, I won't take anything after like 1 to 2 o'clock. I'll have something usually right after lunch. And going back to what George said before, I like the taste of coffee.
I love
it.
It.
I always have since I was a kid. It's just one of those things. You know, so I enjoy like a little espresso or something along those lines right after I eat lunch. And it does kind of give me a little pickup for a little bit, or depending on what I got to do, or if I got to, you know, cognitive functions and stuff. If I'm going into something with a business, I got to concentrate a lot, or if I'm just being with the kids and I need a little bit extra there. But I mean, we've been going for about 21 minutes now. The last thing I want to mention, and George is wearing the shirt right now, Bubs Naturals, right? I didn't plan on kind of talking about Bubs during this.
You just know it's the only sweatshirt I wear almost every day.
Well, that too, besides High Speed Daddy or, you know,
or
the
Lighthouse.
Yeah. But, you know, George, tell them what Bubs is. Tell them, you know, so basically Bubs, Bubs is
you want me to tell him or you to tell him?
You know what? You go ahead and tell them. I wanted to dive in there on the veteran side of it and what it supports and stuff like that. But you know what? You go tell them. We know the owners of Bubs. It does tie in with coffee. George, take it away.
Yeah. So Bubs is run by our friends, Sean and TJ, really amazing friends of ours who started the company in memory of Glenn Dory, who was one of their best friends, Navy SEAL, who died in the line of duty, I believe. I don't remember the specifics. And so they started Bubs in honor, and they wanted to provide the best quality collagen that they could. So they have single source collagen, actually same source as Vital Proteins, the best in the world that's there. And they produce collagen and MCT oil to help everybody like us, active lifestyle, first responders, men, anybody active or wanting to live and thrive through their life with quality products like collagen, which helps regenerate like your bone, tissue, connective tissue, hair, skin, nails, joints, all of those things. And then MCT oil, which is really one of the most concentrated, highly effective fats that's there. And so it's basically like one chain of fats out of coconut oil that's like hypersensitive and focused down on providing the best benefit. And my favorite part is that they donate 10% off the top line back to special forces and veterans to help them scholarships, get them in school and help them transition out. And the benefits are absolutely amazing. And I actually add collagen to my coffee every single day. And so you get 19 grams of protein. It's 0 calories. It's loaded with vitamins and minerals. It'll make your hair grow beautiful if you have it, whatever else you want to do with it. But it also helps a ton. And like the way that I think about it, if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, amazing book if you haven't. But when we think about our life, we have abilities all day where we can kind of sneak in things to help our life be better. And so like if I have a coffee, I can drink the coffee, or I can add collagen that's tasteless, add 19 grams of protein, get the health benefits with it. And then when my kids don't want to eat vegetables, but they love their soup at dinner, and I pour 4 scoops in and they can't taste it, oh, well, there's your 58 grams of protein and those health benefits as well. And so Bubs is somebody we support wholeheartedly, and good friends of ours.
And you nailed you hit the nail on the head with all that. The only thing I want to mention is that before you were talking about intermittent fasting and stuff like that, throwing Bubs and MCT oil or MCT powder, I'm sorry, which actually mixes in better than oil.
Yep.
With your coffee in the morning is the perfect thing to give you that last kick for the next 3 to 4 hours when you wake up, just to get that 16-hour, 18-hour fast, whatever you're trying to do there for intermittent fasting. And it basically kind of just fills you up with those little fats in the morning to bring you that full length and let you hit your goal.
Yeah. I think, as we come to a wrap, I think the one thing I want everybody to remember when it comes to coffee is like, I look at coffee like a tool, right? It's a tool in the toolbox, right? And when you build a house, you don't use the same tool the entire time, right? You have to rotate through them and you use it when you need it. And that's what coffee should be. And it's okay to use coffee as a happiness tool. It's okay to use coffee as a pre-workout tool. It's okay to use coffee as an energy tool. But you have to remember that if you keep using the same tool over and over and over, it wears down, starts breaking down, and becomes less effective. And don't forget that if you use a broken hammer on a wall, it's also going to damage the wall, i.e. your body. And so be intentional about it and kind of know, and then know your coffee, like know what you're drinking and what you're putting into your body. We spend so much time like, I want to eat organic. I want to do this. I want grass-fed meats. I don't want EMFs in my house. I don't want radiation. I don't want exposure to this. I'm like, that's all amazing, right? And then you drink mold. And all of it is, broken down from the inside out. And so we have to make sure that we're looking across the board, and we have just that little bit of discipline to really ensure that what we're putting into our bodies is helping us. And I love coffee. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world. But I also know that like it can be abused just like anything else and not be effective. And, we're parents. And, it's fun, when we're tired that day and like we want to play because we always want to say yes. But then when 3 weeks down the road, we're drinking coffee every day and we can't play, we're on the couch, we're bedridden, we're exhausted. It doesn't do us any good. And it doesn't really help us. Like we just have to get down to it and really support our foundation and use these tools to kind of amplify it. And you said something you said, I started loving coffee as a kid. Here's what I'll say. I loved milk and sugar as a kid, with coffee added. And then somewhere in my adulthood, i.e. Somalia, when we couldn't get milk and sugar, I just had to drink black coffee. And then I fell in love with it. So my coffee journey has been a little bit different.
There you go. And I'm not advocating that kids should drink coffee, right? It's just something that, happened back in the day and it was unsupervised. Not that my parents condoned it. It was usually during Sunday school at church when no one was looking. I needed to get through service. And so I poured myself and I said, oh, this tastes great with a lot of sugar in it. So yeah, don't do that. Wait till you're of age.
And then you want to answer Joseph's last question?
Oh, I drink Monster like water. Is coffee really that much healthier than Joseph? We need to have a discussion, brother.
Ready?
Me and you, offline. George,
Joseph, you know what this looks like. Ready?
Yeah.
You remember this, Joseph. Just lean in.
Lean
right?
in.
I'm not a staff NCO anymore, and you're too good of a Marine, but I know you've seen that before. Stop. Drink water. Like, if I had to make like recommendations for anything, like the only energy drinks that I drink are Kill Cliffs or Fit Aids, and that's it. And I still try to use them in moderation, but there are so many better things on the market that give you the same stimulants, but instead of using like artificial caffeine with all these like, I don't even know the poison and the things that are in them. They use like extracts, like green tea extract and plant extract and vitamin B. Like vitamin B is a stimulant. And so they'll use vitamin B and all these other things that don't even have caffeine in them that give you the same effect, but also support your body without the crash and without becoming dependent on per se the caffeine. And so those are things that are out there. And then don't ever underestimate water. You should probably drink water like water, Joseph.
There you go. Well, I think that was awesome for today. We're just under a half hour here. We don't want to take up too much of everyone's time. But I do want to appreciate everyone that's joined us today. Everyone from Culture City, from our Facebook group, High Speed Daddy, Provide, Protect, Connect, from our Facebook page. And thank you, George, for coming on with all his super knowledgeable stuff about coffee.
I forgot about all that stuff until you asked me a question.
Well, that's why I'm here, right? So to extract the awesomeness out of you.
I'm sure we'll link to the blog post in the comments and up in
we're already in there. Yeah, we're already in there for our blog post. We have a great blog post you guys should check out at our website. It is in the comments. Check it out below. Referencing some great benefits about coffee for parents. And we are here 4:30 Eastern time every Wednesday, no matter what. Sorry that Corey couldn't join today. It is Corey's.
It is his birthday.
14th wedding anniversary.
14th wedding anniversary.
Yeah, 14th wedding anniversary. And I gave him the day off. So,
so nice of you.
So he's out there enjoying his time. And
he's probably watching this.
Oh, I know he is. I know for a fact he is.
Yeah. Corey, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Corey. You and
Get off your phone. Get off your phone.
Yeah.
Get off your phone. Go. Go dance or something.
All right. We will see everyone next week, 4:30 Eastern time. Catch you later.
Bye.